listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Okay, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you are with us this morning. Grateful that we can share the morning together. Off to a good start so far. Different glitch on a different day. Every day he's got a different glitch getting started. Yesterday, our Sudbury News Facebook page was just unable to access. And so that's a big part of this show is getting on Facebook and using that as a main source of the information that we're using on the show. And so with that, it was really hard to do the show, but we made it through. Billy and I actually made it through. We somehow found a way to get it done. And with all your help on the show as well, we were able to get through. And so this show today should be somewhat more along the format of what we normally expect. Because the Facebook somehow at about 10 o'clock last night began working again. So grateful for that. Maybe it was like a one-day glitch or something. We're not sure. We're grateful that it's back up and running. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio. We're also streaming at cklu.ca. Click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can stream us. You can also download the Radio Player Canada app. Take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. Also, other programming from CKLU as well. Listen to it throughout the day. Check out cklu.ca if you want to donate, because it is basically run from your donations. People like yourself supporting CKLU, keeping the airwaves open, the lights on, and having an opportunity for people like myself and anyone from the community, for that matter, to have their own show. It's basically entirely volunteer run. Very little bit of money goes to any administrative costs. And so we've been around since 1984, started in a little trailer on Ramsey Lake Road and on top of the hill at Laurentian University. Humble beginnings. Now we're located in the old Telegraph building, all part of the new MacEwan School of Architecture under the umbrella of Laurentian University. We're grateful to be here and have this radio station here in town. And also, if you throw a camera in front of yourself these days, and you get a Facebook page or a YouTube channel, you're able also to stream. And so that's what we've also done, making it possible for people at home to comment and to be part of the show. It's your show on your station. We'll do our best to get your comments read so that way people on the radio can hear them. Those that are watching live stream can see them. I'll get them up on the screen as well as you can see them in the chat. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow. Please, all of our social media, that's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, even LinkedIn. So we're doing our best to work on our social medias. It's a work in progress. It's basically a one-person volunteer operation with many friends and a surrounding group of people that, a support group that really helps this show continue each and every day, despite technology. It's possible because of technology, but technology becomes the greatest hurdle as well for the show. So like, share, subscribe, follow, comment mainly on the show. We want to get all your comments in on the conversation today. We should be doing a deep dive into the special rapporteur, David Johnson, and what he decided that there is no public inquiry in the alleged, in brackets or quotations, the alleged interference from foreign nefarious characters. And so what does that mean for Canada? Was he the person that should have been chosen to look into this particular incident or incidents that could be infiltrating our country and our so-called democracy? Brackets and quotes around the so-called. And so that's a bit of our deep dive today. We have a little bit more information on the fire that took place downtown Sudbury. and also a little bit of the whatever local news is happening. We're on top of anything local. We'll be able to share all the local stories. We'll have some weather for you. We probably won't have the sports report today, but we're grateful that all of you are on so far, that you stuck with us through yesterday, and we're back today again. So thank you, Judy, for being here this morning. Hope you're having a great Friday. We should be talking about some really great weather coming up, so that will also help us have a great morning. Good morning, everyone. From Denise, David, his usual, stay safe, David. Thank you very much for that. Anne Marie, good morning. Thanks for being with us. And let's see here. Looks like Frida's with us this morning as well. Good morning, Frida. Thanks for chiming in, and hope you're having a great morning as well. Belinda, good morning. Have a awesome weekend. And always got the cool emojis going on there. Thank you, Belinda, always for being so positive. Monique, good morning, everyone. And Van Morning. Also, so let's dive right in. Let's get started. Let's have a great show today. Hopefully, all the technology is going to be working, and quite a few videos to go back to get us through some of the information we want to cover today. So let's do our best to do that, and we'll be back after the weather right after this. Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently, it is 6 degrees. It's sunny. But then again, you got that pesky frost advisory for the last 3 or 4 days. And I think today will be the last time we're getting warned about this, because we're going to be heading into some really, really warm weather. Today, we can expect sunny, high of 17, UV index 6 or high. Tonight, clear, low of +2. There is a risk of frost again. There you go. Another risk of frost. Friday, sunny, high of 23. The UV index will be 7 or high. A little bit of look at your 6-day forecast. Friday, sunny, 23. Saturday, sunny, 28. Sunday, sunny, 26. 27 on Monday and sunny. 27 on Tuesday, partly cloudy, mix of sun and cloud. 27 on Wednesday as well. So again, a lot of sun in the forecast, and very hot days, but cool nights if we're still getting the frost. So that's your Sudbury weather. Let's look at your satellite over northern Ontario. We love to see this. If we can get a satellite view like this more times than not, we'd have a lot of sun, a lot of clearing, very few clouds, mostly over the Great Lakes. And so just for those of you on the radio, just explaining it a little bit, that's your Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca, which lands on our Sudbury.news website. And if you have any suggestions for our website, how to make it better, we really appreciate it. You can message us on Messenger. You can email us at sudburynews@gmail.com, especially if you have any news stories you want to share. You can do that those two ways. I know many of you do that already, and I really appreciate that. It really keeps us on top of what's going on in the community and abroad with local issues and social issues that affect all of us. And so we'll be back right after this with some of those headlines, your comments, and much, much more right after this. Okay, so let's see how we're going to do this today. Lots to cover. Indeed, lots to talk about. Still got the satellite image up there. We are trying to cover as much as we can and try and be as informed as we can of the things that affect each of us here locally. A lot of people say, why do you cover, broader subjects and things like that? I just find that many of us are more concerned than ever about what's going on in our country. We do also want a vibrant community locally, and I think there's a connection there. I think our country is made up of vibrant communities. And happy individuals make happy communities, make happy countries. And that's pretty much the connections we try and connect the dots here with these conversations. And I think Monique was saying she 100% agrees with the sun aspect, and the having some nice weather really does help us to stay positive. So let's see here, Belinda. We're going to be talking about this a little bit later. So there should have been an independent investigation into the so-called interference in our country and elections and policies and all that stuff. So when you pick a family friend to oversee a public inquiry, that actually sat on the Trudeau Foundation board. That's not fair. I don't understand why there are no criminal charges yet. We will dive right into that a little bit later today. I tried to do my best with the limited time that I have to take many angles on it, and so that way it's somewhat professional. At the same time, I'm just, with my limited resources that I have, try and share the background of what's going on for those that it's new to, because there's a lot of people who still are not aware of what actually happened and why we have David Johnston looking into some of these things, right? So try and give it the background, try and have some perspectives from the opposition party, from the former leader of the NDP even chimes in on it and has, basically saying what most Canadians are saying as well. And good morning, Monique. Thanks for being with us. Nice happy sun emoticon there, emoji. So let's try to do our best with that to unpack it and understand what's going on and see what it is that if Canadians will be able to prevail in what I think most want is a public inquiry. We want answers. We don't want foreign entities meddling in our country, and I don't think the solution to what we have so far is satisfied everybody. But again, let's get into that later. For now, let's keep things as local as we go through some of the stories that have been shared on our newly able to get into Sudbury News Facebook page. The province, so let's see here. Police chief gives provincial training plans a passing grade. A trio of changes to policing training requirements and funding have received a favorable response. This is coming from Sudbury.com from Greater Sudbury Police Chief Paul Pedersen. The post-secondary requirement, this is what they're talking about. There was the Ontario government was looking at possibly making police officers have to have a post-secondary education in order to qualify to be a police officer. But the post-secondary requirements was flagged by Greater Sudbury Police Board member Jerry Lougheed during last week's meeting, at which he expressed disagreement with the police's change of course. I think policing should be a university degree because of the charter, because of DNA, because of vigorous defense lawyers in terms of their approach to courts, he said. Having a degree in policing, you're likely to get a better quality of police officer to deal with the realities of the 2023 moving forward. Although he clarified the Greater Sudbury Police Services is very thorough in their screening, he urged Pedersen to advocate in favor of an enhanced post-secondary requirement with provincial officials. So I guess stay tuned for this, whether or not it's going to be a requirement for police to have a post-secondary education. I myself feel I was kind of surprised when I found out they didn't need it. I thought someone of their authority and stature and ability to influence things in our society, you would think far lesser industries and positions require post-secondary education. I would have thought that would have been a no-brainer. However, the debate still is on. So we have city seeks feedback in updated sustainable waste strategy. An online survey to submit feedback on an updated sustainable waste strategy will be available until June the 6th. That story can be found on our Facebook page. You click on it, and you can find where that link would be to get to that poll. Again, you should be aware that the word sustainable is a Trojan horse to some extent. If you do a deep dive into that, the word sustainable, you definitely want to have your voice heard there. What does it mean? Sustainable wastewater strategy, right? It sounds great. I mean, obviously sustainable, but sometimes the definition of a word and what they mean by it, you definitely just want to look into that. That's all I'm saying. Happy Friday. Thank you, Diane. Bon matin to you as well. Let's see here. So Vin chiming in about the Young Globalist Leaders Association needs to be deemed a terrorist organization. Young Globalist Leader, I believe, is the World Economic Forum under Klaus Schwab's direction to develop local leaders, to which I believe the likes of Putin was one. Our own Justin Trudeau was one. Young leaders, they kind of groom them to be world leaders, right? And then they have influential people around that make sure they kind of get in. Speaking on, keeping with the theme of interfering with democracies, that's kind of along the same lines there. But thanks for that comment. Jagmeet Singh made a pact with the devil. Anything he comments on is irrelevant. Yeah, and that was part of what I was going to share later today was Jagmeet Singh's take on, he actually has the ability to force a public inquiry if he wanted to. And he just kept saying he's got a lot of tools in the toolbox. And a CBC reporter of all people were kind of questioning him on that and wouldn't let it go. What tools do you have in the toolbox? He says, I just have tools in the toolbox. Yeah, but what are those tools? Well, I have tools in the toolbox. It was like a very excruciating interview to listen to. But he said, I'll sit down with him and he'll know that I really need him to know that I want him to have a public inquiry. And he'll get my point. Yeah, but you can vote on it in Parliament and force him. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit down with him and I'm going to let him know how important it is, and he'll get the picture. And I have many tools in my toolbox. Well, what are those tools, Jagmeet? Oh, I can't say, or I'm not going to say. I just have tools. It was really, the interview went on for like 10 minutes, and that's basically it. For 10 minutes, that's all that happened. So I feel your pain, definitely, Belinda, on that one. Rob, you're sharing some links in the comment section, so I would encourage everybody to check those out. On the fly, I would not be able to do that on the show. I don't even have the wherewithal to do that while we're watching. It's if you knew the setup we had here, you would definitely know why I'm not able to do that. But encourage everybody, if you're sharing them here, to have a look into it. There's a lot of stuff going on politically in the world. We'd need probably a whole day's newscast 24/7 to get through everything. There's so much going on. So thanks, Rob. It looks like you have a lot of stuff here. Police do not need a degree. They are apprenticeships. Thank you, Zacharias. Zach. Thanks for chiming in. Great to have you on, by the way. Yeah, it's an apprenticeship. But still, they're wondering whether or not they need post-secondary degrees, maybe instead of apprenticeships, I don't know, or along with an apprenticeship. Hard to say, but that's the model, right? Apprenticeship is a totally different model. It's kind of like on-the-job training. The more hours you put in, you get trained, which, I've been through university myself, and I'm familiar with apprenticeships, and apprenticeship is probably more effective. I'm more about learning on the job myself than to just hear a bunch of theory for a long time and be book smart, so to speak. But you never know. I don't know. They're going to decide what they're going to decide. The only tool in the toolbox happens to be the Prime Minister. Okay, cool. Jagmeet talks of both sides of his mouth. His words and actions do not coincide with one another, for sure. It's like what I said about Justin Trudeau the other day. I said, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. And that's really just show me the money. Like, show me what you're going to do. Don't say it. Show me the action, right? Speaking of action, the Greater Sudbury Fire Services did an amazing job downtown with the fire at Oscar's Grill, part of the Colson building there in the corner of Durham. And is it Larch? Durham and Larch? Fire at 40-unit Durham building displaces residents and businesses. The Red Cross and city agencies helped 23 people. 4 cats, 2 dogs were also displaced due to the fire, while ground floor businesses were damaged significantly. Sudbury.com goes on to say the smell of smoke still lingers in downtown Sudbury as a result of the large fire that broke out in a multi-story building bordered on Durham and Larch. Yes, I was right. The old City Hall lane. The area is still closed to traffic. The building held several businesses on the main floor, including Oscar's, Culta Village, Business Casual, the Colson, Diamonds, Monte Leon Custom Fashions, and Thrive Health Foods, as well as 3 stories of residential units. All told, there were 40 units in the building. Much is still unknown about the fire, including the cause and extent of damages, as the Ontario Fire Marshal began their investigation yesterday. Greater Sudbury Fire Services Deputy Chief Craig Lawrence was also telling Sudbury.com that the fire began on the first floor of the building behind Oscar's Grill, so at least they know where it started. That's where our crews responded, and when they made entry, they focused their efforts on the rear of the building, he said. So more and more information is going to come through from that. Hopefully we can get some more information on that as information becomes available. Miles is saying, yes, that Zach is indeed right. Apprenticeships with a school in Aylmer, Ontario. That's what the police, their education or whatever, their training. That's the model for their training. It's from Aylmer, Ontario. So yeah, but again, they're still debating whether or not they're going to need a post-secondary education along with that, I'm thinking. So Vin says he has zero issue with the training and census of police. He feels that there is a need for detectives to find parties guilty of crime, for sure. And maybe there needs to be a split between what type of policing you're doing, maybe, right? So apprenticeships go to the street cop kind of thing, or whatever, certain just general policing. And then if you want to, be a detective or homicide, whatever, maybe you do get some post-secondary education on how to do that type of policing, right? Some more specific policing. And again, I'm not the person to be talking about this particular subject. I don't have the background or the information on it. But definitely Zach and Miles have chimed in and helped us out with that for sure. Thanks, guys. Speaking of police part of labor human trafficking investigation. It's a stark reminder that human trafficking remains a large, clandestine, and complex issue, even in our own city. I had an incident where someone who very close to me had a brush with what could have possibly got themselves on the dark side of human trafficking, meaning they could have been abducted and brought into it, and it's, the stress and the anxiety it caused myself. I really feel for the families, the individuals, first of all, affected by this, that are involved in it, victims of it, also the family members of the victims and the pain that they go through. It definitely needs to have more attention on it and get to the bottom of it. Why this Sudbury, Ontario councillor's election campaign finances are being audited. So it's Bill Leduc. He basically had an event where he was politicized the event somehow. I think it's important to bring this to light so that in the future we don't have councillors campaigning at events they shouldn't be campaigning at. So he's going to be audited to see if in fact he was, not supposed to be doing what he was doing. So that's at least good. Locally, hopefully we're holding our people accountable so that way they're at least adhering to standards that have been put in place to have a fair and open community when it comes to politics. And we would hope that we'd have the same thing federally. And but anyways, we'll have more on that if more information comes out on Councillor Bill Leduc and his dealings and whether or not there was any wrongdoing there. And now let's move a little bit to more federally in our politicians, whether or not they're being held to account or not, and what's going on with all this so-called interference that we're hearing about. And who is this David Johnson, special rapporteur, who's appointed to look into it? What's really going on? To give us a little bit of background here, I have a quick video, and it'll just explain a little bit of the background. We'll be back right after
It's
this.
called the Chinese interference scandal, and there's no shortage of Ottawa insiders saying that it could spell the ultimate undoing of the Trudeau government. Although, frankly, that's been said a lot before. The core of the scandal is this: Chinese diplomats working out of Chinese consulates are accused of actively meddling in the last two Canadian federal elections. Specifically, they tried to get Liberal candidates elected instead of Conservative candidates, the Liberal platform having a softer line on Beijing. The nature of the meddling isn't all that big. A laundered donation here, some in-kind volunteers there, a few misinformation-y Facebook posts. It's not like China picked the winner or anything. But the real scandal is the accusation that CSIS knew this was happening, warned the government that it was happening, and received crickets in return. It's actually pretty easy to deal with foreign diplomats credibly accused of election interference. You expel them and tell their government not to do it again. So it's notable that despite years of intelligence warnings, the Trudeau government just didn't.
And so hopefully that doesn't oversimplify it by any means.
If you are type 2
and just gives a little bit of background, what's going on. There's alleged interference from Chinese actors. And so, and there's some specifics that were explained there with a specific Chinese Canadian who was allegedly bullied. So there's one specific incident. There's others as well. And so now you have, who was doing the bullying and why? And so let's look into that. Are his claims real? And then so you have the Secret Service, who are kind of supposed to be on board looking into these things. And are they doing their job? Are they getting the information to politicians in a timely manner the way they're supposed to be? And if they did, why didn't the politicians do anything about it? So that's one thing. Or did they not get it to them so that way the politicians couldn't do anything? So there's all these questions we're having there. And so Justin Trudeau could have asked for a public inquiry, because if you didn't do anything wrong, you just say, look, I didn't do anything wrong. Look, it's pretty apparent what happened. I didn't know about this stuff. The media was the one that leaked it. It didn't come from anywhere else. Came from a leak from our intel to the media, and then the media published it. And then Prime Minister Trudeau said, that's the first time I heard about it. So he heard it from a leak from the intelligence community to the media, and then that's how he heard about it, when really he should have known about it ahead of time. That's the way things work. And someone inside basically said, we did tell him, but he wasn't doing anything about it, so we had to leak it to the media. So if I was Prime Minister and that was true, I heard about it through the media, first of all, I'd want a public inquiry, and I want to show how I was not involved in this one way or another, and how what I was saying was true, and hold the media accountable, or the Secret Service accountable, for what they're doing. because you're supposed to come to me as the prime minister, not go to the media. But no, he didn't do that. He appointed a questionable person, and it is questionable, and we'll see why that is in a second, to look into it. And let's see what Tom Mulcair, thanks for sharing this with me, by the way, Miles. Tom Mulcair, former leader of the NDP, not somebody you would think would have anything bad to say about this at all, probably be a little bit on side, seeing that the current leader kind of has a special, there's the two parties are working together now, the NDP and the Liberals. You'd think he wouldn't really want to say anything bad about it. This is what Tom Mulcair, of all people, says in an interview with CTV.
Was going to call for a public inquiry. Your thoughts today, 24 hours later, knowing what we know now and having time to digest Johnston's reasoning, what do you think?
I'm thinking that Pierre Poilievre is right. You don't have to be a conservative to agree with Poilievre. And it's not just conservatives who are dissatisfied with what happened yesterday. Canadians are. Since this broke at noon yesterday, Marcia, I've been doing media in French and in English across the country. And I have to tell you, I've yet to meet a single senior observer of the political scene who thinks, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Sure, Johnston's saying, move along, nothing to see here. Justin Trudeau met the Chinese president and had a set-to with him in Bali, Indonesia at the end of November because his staff put out. Trudeau was upset with Chinese government interference in Canadian elections. Since then, they've been doing everything they can to camouflage and to put a lid on this whole thing. It's not working. Johnston is an honorable gentleman, but the minute it became clear that the Trudeau Foundation, and he was in a key role at the Trudeau Foundation the day he got named special rapporteur, the minute it was clear that that was part of what had to be looked at, Mr. Johnston should have done the honorable thing and stepped back. Instead, he persisted and he signed and he had this press conference yesterday, and he's telling us this. I've looked at the evidence that the people who work for Trudeau have given me, because we don't know what the whole evidence is, and that's the entire problem. And I'm satisfied that most of the media reports are incomplete. And the government, how can he possibly make that affirmation? No minister and the prime minister failed to act. How can he make that very blanket affirmation when there's been no contradictory proceedings, no ability to cross-examine, no ability to ask people under oath whether they have provided all of the information? We're talking about the security establishment that has been under fire. They're the ones who are deciding what they're going to show and what they're not going to show. Their life work is being clever about what they show and don't show in terms of documents. And Mr. Johnston is trying to convince Canadians that he knows that nothing happened with any of the ministers, that there's been no reticence to act, even when Bill Blair, who stood there at that press conference, took months and months to approve something as simple as a warrant to go after some of the information on one of the people who, it turns out, had close links to the Liberal Party. So Canadians look at this and it simply does not pass the smell test.
But Johnston says the information, Tom, is too sensitive to be dealt with in a full-on public inquiry.
He's no doubt right. But that doesn't stop the Americans from having Robert Mueller out there investigating Russian interference in the 2016 campaign and compelling the production of documents and forcing people to testify as witnesses and cross-examining them. The CIA gets brought before Congress all the time. They'll provide documents. Some of them will be redacted. You put in safeguards. You protect the trade craft. You protect the sources. That was one of the arguments that you heard in the clip before. Oh, well, people's lives could be in danger. Well, nobody in Canada in the right mind would want to put somebody's life in danger. So you put in safeguards, and what can be made public gets made public. But you cross-examine. You have a contradictory proceeding. You hear both sides. Here, none of that has taken place. And yet he's saying, well, we're going to have a kumbaya moment. We're going to have public hearings, and we'll talk about the failings of the security establishment, which has been part of the ruse by the people in the Prime Minister's office for months now, saying, oh, well, we didn't know about Michael Chong. It never made it up to us. Well, it turns out that it did make it up to them, but they did nothing about it. So these are all the things that they would love to keep a lid on. This is an attempt to distract. They've created a new set of questions. They're saying, well, let's find out what it's like to live in a diaspora community of an ethnic minority in Canada, and let's try to help them going forward for the future. No. Canadians want to know what happened. with Chinese government interference in the 2019 and 21 campaigns. They keep saying, well, it didn't affect the result of the election. That's not the question. The question is, did it take place? So if it were, let's say, 6 or 8 or 10 conservatives who might have had their result affected, they're simply saying, well, it would have been a minority Liberal government anyway. That's true. But it doesn't mean that it didn't affect the Canadian political landscape, the state of play, the relative forces between the parties. And it is so fundamental in our democracy, Marcia. What is more important than the election in our?
So there you go. So Tom Mulcair, very well spoken, and he goes on in this interview as well. That was only half of it, and he makes some really good points after that as well. And again, this isn't a partisan issue. This is not what party you belong to. He said again, it might not have affected who the leader was. Still would have been a Liberal minority government. But in certain communities, like let's say in Greater Sudbury, if we would have had a Conservative leader instead of a Liberal, that made a difference in that community and that person's life, who would have been in Parliament, making, trying to represent the people that they were trying to represent. So a different person is in there now, and so it did affect things. And so even if it didn't affect the ultimate, landscape of who has a minority government, it affected individuals in there, and it did affect the landscape. So. Tom Mulcair. So let's listen to not only just there's one party there. Pierre Poilievre also had comments to make on this, and so this is the official opposition, right? So Tom Mulcair was the leader of the NDP before. That's what his views are on this. He believes there needs to be a public inquiry, and also see what Pierre Poilievre thinks. As soon as I turn up the volume. And we'll get back to it here.
First, after the election happened, where we knew Beijing interfered, he hired this gentleman named Rosenberg to look into it. Who's Rosenberg? He's a former member of the Trudeau Foundation, which got $140,000 from Beijing. Then there was an outcry because all the intelligence that Trudeau knew about got leaked to the media, showing that Beijing interfered to help him win the election. So he said, okay, I'll hire someone called a special rapporteur. So who does he hire? His ski buddy, his chalet neighbor, his family friend, and of course, member of the Trudeau Foundation. And just to make sure that Mr. Johnson was not in a conflict of interest, they asked yet another person to look into that, who's a member of the Trudeau Foundation. Out of 40 million people in Canada, there's no one outside of the Trudeau Foundation qualified to look into any of this Justin Trudeau foreign interference scandal. This is ridiculous. Let's get back to common sense. I'm going to bring home control of our democracy to the common people in this country. Only a Pierre Poilievre government can do.
Okay, and I was going to take that out, but I wasn't quick enough on the fly. Not here to promote any particular party over another.
Awesome.
I'm actually here to just make a point that they're all in agreement, one with another. And not only all in agreement, but you have the take of, different independent media. So the media really here is just doing a good job at just asking questions to the politicians. And I really do feel they're doing a good job by and large on this. And I do feel that eventually the truth will come out. And I do believe there will be a public inquiry. I think the public are going to speak so loudly. There's going to be a public inquiry, and it is going to affect the outcome of the next election. And I don't think it's going to be in favor of the current administration. So here you go. Here's just piggybacking off of the idea that only, Trudeau Foundation people are involved in the investigation, investigating how the Trudeau Foundation even received money from the very people they're trying to look into that were possibly infiltrating our government. How is that even possible?
Now, who could really question the impartiality of this lot? Now, when asked by a reporter if Justin Trudeau would hire someone else to look into Chinese election interference, given the clear and obvious conflict of interest between the two, well, Justin Trudeau did what he does best. Attack the Conservatives, say Pierre Poilievre is hiding behind a veil of ignorance, and saying that Conservatives are attacking Johnson's integrity and not his report. And for once in his life, I think Justin Trudeau might be correct. Johnson's integrity, without a doubt, is in question, however sad that may be.
First of all, they're not questioning his report. They're only questioning his integrity. I'd suggest that opposition leaders and indeed Canadians take a look at his report and understand the work that he's done in this. This is an eminent Canadian who has served in many capacities over decades, was appointed Governor General by Stephen Harper, and has done extraordinary work on an extremely serious issue. And Pierre Poilievre is choosing to sit behind a veil of ignorance instead. He doesn't want the facts to get in the way of a good political argument or a personal attack.
But if the Conservatives were just attacking the report and not Johnson's clear conflict of interest, they would still have tons of ammunition. Let's look at this report together, shall we? In the report, Johnson doesn't mention the Trudeau Foundation once, despite being a key organization at the heart of the China scandal. Despite the organization receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars of communist-backed donations before and after Justin Trudeau became the Prime Minister. And despite Johnson and Maurice Rosenberg, the first person appointed by Trudeau to investigate the China scandal, being members of the Trudeau Foundation. It's so obviously a cover-up that it can't be ignored, but yet nowhere in the report does David Johnston mention the Trudeau Foundation. However, in the report, Johnson goes to great lengths to attack the legitimacy of legacy media reporting that broke this scandal wide open. Going against the interests of the establishment in Canada is a big problem in his eyes. Leaking secret intelligence is unlawful and a breach of duty by the leaker. It cannot be justified by any frustration the leaker may have with the government's response. It is a matter of urgency that all efforts be made to identify and hold the leakers responsible. Malice cannot be ruled out. I recognize that absent the leaks, I would not have been appointed to undertake my work. However, that does not justify the leaks, which risk great harm to the Canadian interest. And if you really wanted to see where David Johnston's loyalty lies, that last line is all you need to see. That the CSIS leaker operated, in his eyes, against the interests of the Canadian people. I would argue the complete opposite. I would say the brave CSIS leaker operated not in the interest of the Canadian establishment, not in the interest of Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, but in the interest of Canadian people. To tell us, the Canadian people, at great risk to himself, what is really going on, to not hide the truth like David Johnston and Justin Trudeau would prefer. The argument that you're going to see a lot from Liberals on social media and from journalists over the next few days is that David Johnston can't be seen as biased toward Justin Trudeau because David Johnston was appointed by Stephen Harper. But like I said in the beginning, it doesn't matter what team you play for or what color tie you wear. The Canadian establishment always look out for one another. And Chinese election interference has been going on for a very long time without anybody being held to account. At least according to former CSIS intelligence officer Michel Junot Katsuya, who last month told members of parliament that he has evidence that every single government from Brian Mulroney to Justin Trudeau has been compromised by the Communist Party of China. This little communist-backed shindig has been going on for quite a while, it seems. Both Conservatives and Liberals have been benefiting from it. Just watch this.
So today, I want to be very clear, and I want to be very clear. We can prove that every federal government, from Mr. Mulroney to Mr. Trudeau, have been compromised by agents of the Communist China. Every government were informed at one point or another. Every government chose to ignore CSIS warning either by negligence, self-interest, or partisanship. Every government were infiltrated by agents of influence acting on behalf of the Chinese government, and we knew who they were. Not only the sitting government have been compromised, but all federal political parties have been compromised at one point or another. The inaction of the federal government, all federal governments, were led to attacks on many municipal and provincial government. Ultimately, every government had been part of the problem not the solution.
So David Johnston's report, he's not just covering for the Liberals, he's covering for everyone, the entire Canadian establishment. A giant look away sign. There's nothing to see here, folks. The person who holds all the leverage here is Jagmeet Singh, and just like always, he doesn't know what to do. Now, for a while, he's been doing a good job of pretending to care, trying to tell Justin Trudeau to hold a public inquiry into election interference. Now, the one thing he could do is break his coalition with Justin Trudeau to end his supply and confidence agreement and hold Justin Trudeau, finally, to account. But there's a problem. Jagmeet Singh's golden pension doesn't kick in for another 2 years, and by holding Trudeau to account, he risks jeopardizing that coveted golden pension. Watch as Singh pathetically dances around answering a question about breaking his coalition with Trudeau over this report.
I again see the only obvious way to try to force Justin Trudeau to do something he doesn't want to do is the confidence and supply agreement. I mean, what other tool can be as effective as that?
We'll be providing you with details, the media with details when we make those next steps. But there's other tools, and we'll be using those tools.
Okay, but like, I guess I'm hung up on all the tools in the toolbox, right? I've got a hammer, a socket set, a wrench, a drill, a screwdriver. You know, you have the hammer that you can swing with the confidence and supply agreement. I mean, other than a meeting with him, what is the next thing New Democrats are going to do to try to force the Prime Minister to change his path?
Well, like I said, that's not a decision we're making today around the confidence and the supply agreement. But there are other tools, and as soon as we are going to decide on which one we're going to use next, we'll let you know. But we want to make it very clear that we'll be letting the Prime Minister know I disagree with the decision.
Like I've said before, it's a big party and no one wants the music to stop. If you're on the red team, the blue team, or the orange team, they've all got a part to play and they've all got a role. But you know who doesn't? All of us, Canadians. We play the butler and servant as they enjoy the entertainment. All right, Ratio of the Week time. The winner this week, unsurprisingly, is Justin Trudeau. After he announced David Johnston's final report, he got absolutely destroyed on Twitter. 3,651 replies to only 2,672 likes. The independent special rapporteur, the Right Honourable David Johnston, has released his first report and will take the steps needed to implement his recommendations, and will continue to take action to strengthen and protect our democracy. And no one cares. Most corrupt leader in Canada's history. 769 likes at the time of this recording. Seems a few Canadians might be agreeing with that statement. Imagine that. You have just proved that you can get away with anything when you appoint a personal friend to oversee your corruption. If the government is responsible for election oversight and that same government selected/appointed the special rapporteur, then could you please explain to your citizenry how there is legitimate independence to this investigation? The explanation we get from the government is just to trust them. Trust us, we're from the government, we're definitely not lying to you. Yeah, okay, sure. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. Reminder to let me know in the comments section your answer to the comment question.
Okay, and there you go. So there's what Harrison Faulkner of True North, this is podcast, Ray showed, talking about. I just thought he's able to put together what, you know, if I was to sit here and explain it, he's already done it. So I just kind of let it play for a while. So, and does a great job at it. And that was actually a 15-minute segment. The Tom Mulcair interview was almost 10 minutes. And so I tried my best to just kind of pick and choose what was going to be played on the show today, just to show or to give a little bit of the background of what's been going on and what's going on now, and that pretty much everybody is in agreement, including the political leaders of our country, that there needs to be a public inquiry, even though Harrison pointed out that all parties are guilty throughout history of being influenced in this manner that would now come out. And so, unfortunately, maybe Justin Trudeau will be the one who, unfortunately, pays the price for all of them if it does come out now. And again, this is speaking unpartisan, unbiased. It's not about party. It's about democracy, the true democracy, not someone else's definition of it, where the voice of the people, where Harrison was saying it's not the elite that should have their party and entertainment. It's the people. They represent the people. We would always hope that the people that we elect would just represent us, and that's really what democracy should be. We vote them in to represent us, what the things that we find important. And just speaking about that was interesting because there was in the stories to start your day from Sudbury.com, they were saying there was a reader poll. Justin Trudeau decided to change the passports, right? Remember we talked about that? He changed all the iconic images that were on our passport. And the story here from Sudbury.com is much like banknotes, passports need upgrading. The new security features every decade or so. And much like banknotes, governments take the opportunity to freshen up the artwork, for better or for worse. What direction that takes seems to reflect the ideas of the decision maker of the moment. The decision maker of the moment. That's our leader. It doesn't sound too democracy type in my mind. But on paper money, some readers will remember scenes of oil refineries and Inuit hunters. A series of bills in the 80s left a strong impression that avid bird watchers have been in charge of the design of decisions. In due course, the birds gave way to smiling children playing hockey on frozen ponds. The Queen got a little older steadily, and in all cases, notes are redesigned as part of a running arms race with increasing sophisticated forgers, and change to the artwork is the fun part. Similarly, passports are tinkered with every decade or so. As a child, I had a passport. This is the person writing for Sudbury.com. And it showed that we were citizens and we were British subjects it declared it on his passport. And we still are, by the way. And a debatable idea that at the time in the early 70s, that one disappeared. But the headline is, largest group doesn't care about passport design. And if you click on the story, you read the whole story goes on to say, people that are up in arms about the changes to the passport of the artwork that was decided and the historical artwork that was decided to get rid of and the choices, it says that most people don't care. And then I said, okay, well, I actually want to go and see the poll because they have many readers across, many communities. And it says that people that thought it wasn't important were 171. People who thought it was somewhat important were 109 and very important were 249. So if I'm terrible at math, but it looks like more people thought it was important than not here. So Sudbury.com, maybe instead of taking a story that's just generically written by a reporter somewhere else, maybe look at the community that you're writing to and actually make it pertinent to that. And in this community, we actually think it's very important, the design of the passport and how it reflects Canadian identity. It's not, just look at the poll. It's right here on your screen. I'll make it as large as I can. And if you want to go look for yourself, you just type in Sudbury.com/polls and you can see what readers are polling on that. That's all the time we have for today. I hope everyone has a wonderful, great weekend. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU. And hopefully, God permitting, we'll be back on Monday. And so it's going to be a wonderful, great, sunshiny weekend. Get out and enjoy it. Get some vitamin D. Thanks for being with us today. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.